Naomi Brooks woke up to sunlight and the smell of the ocean drifting through the open window. For exactly 4 seconds, the world was perfect. Do-hyun's arm was draped over her waist, heavy and warm and possessive even in sleep. His breath moved slow against the back of her neck. The black pearl ring caught a beam of morning light on her finger, and she turned her hand slightly to watch it glow, remembering the beach, the sunset, the way he'd said, "I loved you before I knew your name," with his forehead pressed against hers. 4 perfect seconds. Then she reached for her phone on the nightstand because the screen was glowing, and the world ended. 1 notification. Unknown number. 6 words. Damien was never working alone, sweetheart. Below the text was a photograph. Grainy. Taken from a distance. But unmistakable. It was them, her and Do-hyun, standing on Houndy Beach the evening before. Forehead to forehead. His arms around her waist. Her hands on his chest. The black pearl ring visible on her finger. The angle of the shot was from above. From the roof of a building. A building that Do-hyun's security team had already swept and cleared hours before they arrived. Naomi stopped breathing. The phone shook in her hand. The screen blurred. A sound came out of her, not a scream, not a word, something lower and more broken than either, and Do-hyun was awake instantly, sitting up, his hand already reaching for her because his body had learned to respond to her distress the way soldiers respond to gunfire. "What is it?" His voice was rough with sleep, but his eyes were already sharp, already scanning, already calculating. She couldn't speak. She held the phone out to him. He took it. Read the message. Looked at the photograph. And then something happened to his face that Naomi had never seen before, not when he dove into the ocean, not when he confronted Yunsuk, not when he took a bullet in a warehouse. Fear. Real, unfiltered, bone-deep fear. Not for himself. For her. It lasted exactly 2 seconds before the mask slammed down like a steel door, but she saw it. She would never unsee it. He was out of bed in one motion, phone already at his ear, calling June. Emergency protocol. Now. Full lockdown. Get every camera in a 5-mile radius of Houndy Beach pulled and reviewed. Every building, every rooftop, every traffic cam. I want to know who was on that roof last night, and I want to know in the next 60 minutes. He hung up and looked at Naomi. She was still sitting in the bed, the sheets pooled around her waist, the ring on her finger suddenly feeling like a tracking device. "He's in custody," she said. Her voice sounded far away. "Damien is in federal custody." "You said it was over." "Damien is in custody." "This isn't Damien." "Then who?" "That's what I'm going to find out. Now before I tell you who was behind that message, and trust me, when you find out, everything you thought you knew about this story is going to flip upside down. I need you to do something for me. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button right now. Smash that like. And drop a comment telling me, who do you think sent that text? Because whoever it is, they've been hiding in plain sight. And what they want is worse than anything Damien Cole ever dreamed of. Let's get into part 2. Within the hour, the estate was a command center. June had mobilized every resource in Do-hyun's arsenal, 12 men on perimeter, 3 tech specialists in the study pulling camera feeds, 2 teams dispatched to sweep every rooftop within a 2-mile radius of where they'd stood on the beach. Naomi sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea she hadn't touched, watching the organized chaos unfold around her, and felt the walls she'd spent weeks building, walls of safety, of love, of finally believing the nightmare was over, crumble like wet paper. Destiny appeared in the doorway in pajamas, her short natural curls pressed flat on one side from sleep. She'd been staying in the guest house since the warehouse incident, and the commotion had woken her. "What happened?" Destiny asked, reading Naomi's face the way she'd been reading it since freshman year of college. "Girl, you look like you've seen a ghost." Naomi showed her the phone. Destiny read the message, looked at the photo, and sat down heavily in the chair beside her. "I'm going to need something stronger than tea," Destiny said. "It's 7 in the morning. And someone was standing on a rooftop photographing you and your Mafia boyfriend last night while his entire security apparatus apparently had the night off. I think the situation calls for flexibility." Despite everything, despite the fear clawing at her chest, despite the ground shifting beneath her again, despite the sickening realization that safety had been an illusion, Naomi almost smiled. This was why Destiny was her person. Because Destiny could make her almost smile when the world was actively trying to destroy her. Do-hyun found them an hour later. He walked into the kitchen looking like he'd aged 3 years in 60 minutes, jaw tight, furrow between his eyebrows carved deep, that lethal stillness that meant he was processing something massive. His black t-shirt showed the tattoos on his forearms, and she could see the muscles in them coiled like springs. "We found something," he said. "Tell me." He sat down across from her. June stood in the doorway behind him, and Naomi noticed that June's hand was resting on his weapon, which he only did when the threat level had moved past orange and into something that didn't have a color. "The photograph was taken from the roof of the Houndy Grand Hotel," Do-hyun said. "My team swept that building at 4 p.m. yesterday. It was clean. Which means whoever took this photo arrived after our sweep and knew our sweep schedule." The implication landed like a bomb. "Someone inside your organization," Naomi said quietly. "Someone with access to our operational protocols. Sweep schedules, routes, timing. This isn't random surveillance. This is someone who knows exactly how we move." "I thought you dealt with the leak." Taemin was feeding Yunsik business intelligence. "This is different. This is someone with deeper access. Someone who's been watching longer than Taemin. Longer than any of us realized." Destiny looked between them. "So you're telling me there's been a mole in this operation the entire time, and Taemin was just the appetizer?" Do-hyun looked at her. "That's exactly what I'm telling you." "Cool. I'm going to need that drink now." June stepped forward. "Hyung, there's more." He placed a tablet on the kitchen table. On the screen was a file, dense, detailed, the kind of intelligence dossier that governments produce. "We traced the phone number that sent the text. It's a burner, obviously, but the encryption protocol it used is military grade. Not civilian. Not criminal. Military. Specifically, it matches protocols used by U.S. intelligence contractors." Naomi's blood froze. "What?" Do-hyun's jaw tightened. "The text said Damien was never working alone. I think we need to consider the possibility that Damien Cole was never the real threat. He was the front man. The distraction. Someone with significantly more resources and training has been behind this from the beginning." "Who?" Naomi's voice cracked on the word. June swiped to the next screen. A photograph appeared, a man, early 40s, built like someone who'd spent decades turning his body into a weapon, with close-cropped dark blonde hair, blue eyes that held the same cold calculation as Damien's but refined, sharpened, made lethal by training that Damien's Georgetown education couldn't touch. "Victor Cole," June said. "Damien's older brother. Ex-CIA, left the agency 6 years ago to start a private intelligence firm, Sentinel Global. They specialize in corporate espionage, asset recovery, and what they politely call high-value individual relocation. In plain language, they find people who don't want to be found, and they make problems disappear." Naomi stared at the photograph. She knew Victor. Not well. Damien had mentioned him rarely, always with a mixture of envy and resentment, the way younger brothers talk about the sibling who got everything first and better. She'd met him once, at a family dinner. He'd been polite. Controlled. He'd shaken her hand and looked at her with eyes that catalogued everything, her height, her weight, her exits, her weaknesses, in the 3 seconds the handshake lasted. "He was at our engagement dinner," Naomi whispered. Then caught herself. Not engagement. Damien and I were never, he called it a commitment celebration. His family threw a dinner. Victor flew in from D.C. "What do you remember about him?" Do-hyun asked. "He scared me more than Damien did. And I didn't even know why at the time. Damien was loud with his control, you could see it coming. Victor was." She searched for the word. "Invisible. He was the most dangerous person in any room, and you'd never know it unless you were trained to look. He's been running Sentinel Global out of Virginia for 6 years," June continued. Annual revenue north of $50 million. Contracts with private corporations, foreign governments, and, according to some sources we'd rather not name, ongoing informal relationships with U.S. intelligence agencies. So we're not just fighting a jealous ex-boyfriend anymore, Destiny said flatly. We're fighting the CIA. Ex-CIA, June corrected. Oh, that makes me feel so much better. Ex-CIA. I'm sure he forgot everything they taught him the day he left. Do-hyun stood up. The motion was controlled, but Naomi could feel the energy radiating off him. Not panic, never panic, but the coiled intensity of a man who just realized the game board was 3 times bigger than he thought. Victor Cole has been the shadow behind everything, Do-hyun said, pacing. He funded Damien's operation. He provided the military-grade surveillance equipment. He connected Damien with Yunsik. A Korean crime lord wouldn't take a meeting with a mid-level American attorney unless someone with serious credentials made the introduction. Victor made that introduction. But why? Naomi asked. What does Victor want? He doesn't care about me. He barely looked at me at that dinner. He doesn't care about you, Do-hyun agreed, and the bluntness of it stung even though she knew it was true. He cares about his brother. His family name. The Cole legacy. When Damien went to federal prison and their father's reputation collapsed, Victor lost his biggest asset, the Cole family's political connections. His firm's contracts depend on those connections. We didn't just put Damien in prison. We dismantled the network that Victor's entire business was built on. So this is about money, Naomi said. This is about power. Money is just how people like Victor keep score. Do-hyun stopped pacing and looked at her. He's not coming for you to bring you back to Damien. He's coming for us, for me, to destroy what I've built, the way we destroyed what he built. You're not the target. You're the leverage. The word leverage sat in Naomi's stomach like a stone. What do we do? She asked. We find him before he moves. And we end this. He looked at June. I want everything. Every Sentinel Global employee. Every contract, every safe house, every alias Victor Cole has used in the last 6 years. Pull every contact we have in Washington. I don't care what it costs. And the mole? June asked. Do-hyun's expression went dark. I'll handle the mole personally. Over the next 72 hours, Do-hyun's world became a war room. He barely slept. Naomi watched him move through rooms filled with screens and men and tension. And she saw something she hadn't seen before, not the crime lord, not the businessman, not the man who held her at night and traced patterns on her skin. This was the general. This was the version of Kang Do-hyun that had maintained an empire against every enemy for 8 years, and it was terrifying and magnificent in equal measure. But in the cracks between the strategy sessions and the phone calls and the grim-faced meetings, he found her. Always found her. At 2 in the morning, he'd appear in the kitchen where she couldn't sleep and press his lips to the top of her head without a word. At dawn, she'd wake to find him sitting on the edge of the bed, already dressed for war, just watching her breathe. You should sleep, she said on the second morning, reaching for his hand. I'll sleep when it's over. You're going to collapse. I've operated on less sleep during worse situations. Name one. He paused. I can't. This is the worst situation I've ever been in. Because of Victor? Because I've never had something I was this afraid to lose. She pulled him down and kissed him, hard, urgent, the kind of kiss that was less about romance and more about anchoring. He resisted for half a second, always half a second, his mind already 3 moves ahead in whatever chess game he was playing, and then his hand fisted in her braids and he kissed her back like she was oxygen. I'm not going anywhere, she said against his mouth. You're right. Because I won't let you. That's not what Do-hyun, I'm choosing to stay. This isn't you keeping me here. This is me refusing to leave. He pulled back just enough to look at her. The raw vulnerability on his face, the fear, the exhaustion, the desperate love, made her heart physically ache. I don't deserve you, he said. Stop it. I dragged you into my world. A world with men like Yunsik and Victor An. A world where a man dove into the ocean for me. A world where someone looks at me like I'm worth protecting. A world where I cook jollof rice and a bodyguard eats 4 slices of my pie and a crime lord says, "I've been looking for silence my entire life," and means it. She cupped his face. This is my world now too. Stop trying to protect me from it and let me stand in it with you. Something broke open behind his eyes. Not broke down, broke open. Like a door he'd been holding shut his entire life finally swinging wide. He pressed his forehead to hers. "Bossy," he whispered. "You love it. I love you. I know. Now go save the world. I'll make breakfast." The breakthrough came on day 3, and it came from the last person anyone expected. Chairman Kong arrived at the estate unannounced, for the second time, but this time, he didn't come alone. Behind his black sedan, a second car pulled up, and out of it stepped a woman Naomi had never seen. Korean, late 60s, elegant in the way that old money is elegant, with silver-streaked hair pulled back and eyes that could cut through steel. She walked with a cane that Naomi suspected was more weapon than walking aid. "Father," Do-hyun said, meeting them in the entryway. His surprise was visible, which meant it was massive, because Do-hyun's surprise was usually invisible. "This is Director Shin Hyejin," the chairman said. "Retired. National Intelligence Service." Naomi watched Do-hyun's expression shift through several phases: confusion, recognition, and then something that looked dangerously like hope. "Director Shin," Do-hyun said, bowing. "I know your reputation." "And I know yours," Director Shin replied, her voice dry and sharp. "Your father called me this morning and told me you were having difficulties with a former American intelligence operative. I was intrigued. I also owe your father several favors that I'd like to settle before I die, and I'm 72, so the timeline is somewhat pressing." She turned to Naomi. Her eyes, quick, intelligent, missing nothing, swept from Naomi's braids to her face to the black pearl ring on her finger. "And you must be the woman who made Chairman Kong cry with a pie." Naomi blinked. Word travels fast. In our world, dear, everything travels fast except justice. That's why we occasionally have to deliver it ourselves. They gathered in the study. Director Shin sat in the leather chair like she'd been born in it and opened a slim briefcase that contained more intelligence on Victor Cole than Do-hyun's entire team had compiled in 3 days. "Victor Cole is not simply a private contractor," Director Shin said, laying out documents with the efficiency of a surgeon laying out instruments. "He is a broker. He sits at the center of a web that connects American intelligence assets to private interests worldwide. He has facilitated operations in 14 countries that we know of. He has connections inside the Korean government, not deep, but enough to be dangerous." "How do you know all this?" Naomi asked. Director Shin looked at her over the rim of her glasses. "Because before I retired, it was my job to know everything about everyone who could threaten Korean national security. Victor Cole crossed my desk 7 years ago when he attempted to recruit a junior analyst in our Seoul bureau. The recruitment failed. The analyst reported it. We've been watching Victor from a distance ever since." She turned to Do-hyun. "What you did to his brother, the arrest, the financial dismantling, the exposure, it didn't just hurt Victor's business. It triggered an internal review at 3 U.S. agencies that had been quietly contracting Sentinel Global. Victor is under investigation. His contracts are being pulled. His empire is collapsing. You didn't just put Damien in prison. You accidentally kicked the legs out from under everything Victor has built." "Accidentally," Do-hyun said. "The best destruction is always accidental. Intentional enemies expect retaliation. Accidental enemies don't prepare for you because they don't know you're the one who broke them." She paused. "Until they figure it out. Which Victor has. So he's coming for us. He's already here. My sources indicate Victor Cole entered South Korea 4 days ago under a diplomatic alias. He has a team of 6 former military contractors, all experienced, all dangerous. They've been operating out of a property in Yongsan." Do-hyun and June exchanged a look that contained an entire conversation. "There's another matter," Director Shin said, her voice dropping. "The mole." The room went still. "You have a leak in your organization. You know this. What you don't know is how deep it goes. She pulled out a single photograph and placed it on the desk. This man has been feeding information to Victor Cole's team for the past 6 weeks. Naomi looked at the photograph and felt the floor drop out from under her. It was Sergeant Yu. The sniper. The man who had been on the roof of the warehouse. The man who had shot the gun out of Damien's hand. The man who had, by all appearances, saved Naomi's life that night. No, Do-hyun said. His voice was flat. Final. A refusal to accept what he was seeing. I'm afraid yes, Director Shin said. Sergeant Yu was recruited by Sentinel Global 18 months ago. Victor Cole identified him as a high-value asset inside your organization and offered him a contract worth more than 5 years of his current salary. Yu has been providing Victor with detailed intelligence on your security protocols, your movements, and, most critically, information about Ms. Brooks. He saved my life, Naomi said, her voice barely above a whisper. In the warehouse. He shot Damien's gun out of his hand. He did, Director Shin agreed. Because killing Damien's gun hand was Victor's order. Victor needed Damien alive and arrested. The arrest triggered the federal investigation that Victor then used to identify which agencies were investigating him so he could begin destroying evidence. Damien's arrest wasn't a loss for Victor. It was a strategic sacrifice. The silence that followed was the loudest thing Naomi had ever heard. Do-hyun stood behind his desk with both hands planted on the surface, his head bowed, his knuckles white. The tattoos on his forearms stood out like dark lightning against his skin. When he finally spoke, his voice was so controlled it was almost mechanical. You shot Damien's gun away to save the plan, not to save Naomi. Correct. And he's been in this house. In this compound. Within range of her. 4 weeks. Correct. And the night I took the bullet, you was on the roof. He had the shot. He could have taken Damien out before Damien fired. He chose not to. Director Shin said nothing. She didn't need to. Naomi watched the realization cross Do-hyun's face like a shadow. You had let Damien fire. You had let the bullet hit Do-hyun. Because Victor wanted Do-hyun injured. Weakened. Distracted. The sniper who should have prevented the shooting had allowed it to happen, and Do-hyun had spent a week in the hospital because of it. Where is you now? Do-hyun asked. On perimeter duty, June said from the doorway, and his voice was ice. East Gate. Bring him in. Quietly. June was gone before the sentence finished. If you are still here and your heart is racing as fast as mine, do me a favor right now, hit that like button so hard your phone feels it. Drop a comment telling me if you saw this betrayal coming. And if you haven't subscribed, you need to fix that immediately because this story is about to go somewhere none of us expected. Let's keep going. What happened next, Naomi would later describe to Destiny as the most terrifying 15 minutes of her life, and she'd been set on fire and drowned, so the bar was high. June brought you into the study. The sergeant walked in looking composed, professional, completely unsuspecting. He was mid-30s, lean, with the kind of quiet competence that made him invisible in a room full of louder men. He'd been part of Do-hyun's organization for 4 years. He'd been at every major operation. He'd been trusted with weapons and positions that could determine life or death. He'd been a lie the entire time. Sergeant Yu, Do-hyun said from behind his desk. His voice was casual. Conversational. The voice of a man asking about the weather. Hyung. You stood at attention. You wanted to see me? I did. I wanted to ask you about something. Do-hyun picked up the tablet from his desk and turned it toward you. On the screen was a bank statement, deposits from a Sentinel Global subsidiary, totaling over 300 million won, made over 18 months into an account under Yu's mother's name. Yu's face didn't change. That was what gave him away. An innocent man would have shown confusion, surprise, denial. You showed nothing. The absence of reaction was the confession. I see, you said quietly. Do you? How long have you known? Long enough. But the real question isn't how long I've known. The real question is, the night at the warehouse. You were on the north beam. You had Damien Cole in your sights for 11 seconds before he fired. 11 seconds, you could have taken the shot. You didn't. You waited. You let him fire. You let that bullet hit me. Do-hyun's voice hadn't changed tone. It was still casual, still conversational, and that was what made it devastating. Was that Victor's order? Let me get shot. Yu's jaw worked. He wanted you injured. Not killed. The order was specific: non-fatal wound, recovery period, create a window of vulnerability. And you followed that order. Yes. Even knowing the bullet could have killed me. I calculated the angle. It was going to miss the kidney. It nicked my spleen. That was not intended. Naomi was standing in the corner of the study. She'd been silent through all of it, her hands clasped so tight in front of her that her knuckles ached. But hearing this man discuss the bullet that nearly killed the man she loved as a calculated angle, a strategic wound, something inside her ignited. You let him get shot, she said, and her voice cut through the room like a blade. You turned to look at her. You stood on a roof with a rifle and you watched a man who trusted you, who brought you into his family, take a bullet that you could have prevented. And then you came to the hospital. You stood outside his door while he was in surgery. I saw you there. I saw the look on your face and I thought it was concern. It was guilt. Yu's composure cracked. Just slightly. Just enough. I didn't want him to die, you said. That was never the plan. The plan, Naomi repeated. You talk about his life like it's a chess move. In our world, everything is a chess move. No. She stepped forward. In your world, maybe. In Victor Cole's world. But not in this one. Not in this house. In this house, people jump into oceans for strangers and take bullets for the people they love and leave roses on nightstands. And you stood in the middle of all of that and betrayed every bit of it. You looked at her for a long moment. Then he turned back to Do-hyun. What happens now? Now you tell me everything. Victor's location, his team, his plan, his timeline. Everything. And if I do? Then I let you walk out of this room. And if I don't? Do-hyun's almost smile appeared. The dangerous one. The one that wasn't a smile at all. Then June handles it. And June is less forgiving than I am. Behind you, June cracked his knuckles. It was the most menacing sound Naomi had ever heard from a man who ate 4 slices of her sweet potato pie. You talked. Victor Cole's plan was surgical. He had a team of 6 operatives positioned across Seoul, each assigned a specific target. The first target was Do-hyun's business infrastructure, a coordinated strike designed to hit 6 operations simultaneously, crippling his financial base. The second target was the chairman, a kidnapping designed to force Do-hyun to trade himself for his father. The third target was Naomi. Not to kidnap. Not to leverage. To kill. Victor doesn't want her as leverage, you said, his voice flat with the resignation of a man who'd already made his peace with what was coming. He changed the plan after the beach photograph. When he saw the ring. He realized she isn't leverage anymore, she's motivation. As long as she's alive, Do-hyun has something to fight for. Victor wants to take that away. The room was so silent that Naomi could hear her own heartbeat in her ears. Do-hyun looked at her across the room. Their eyes met. And in that look was everything, fear, love, rage, and a promise so absolute it made the air vibrate. Timeline? Do-hyun asked without breaking eye contact with Naomi. 48 hours. He's moving day after tomorrow. The chairman first, then the business strikes, then her. In that order. Not anymore, Do-hyun said. He finally looked away from Naomi and picked up his phone. Director Shin, I need your team ready in 24 hours. We're going to Yongsan. Finally, Director Shin's voice came through the speaker. I was getting bored. Do-hyun spent the next 12 hours in a room Naomi wasn't allowed to enter. She understood. This was the part of his world where the walls were drawn and even love didn't grant access. She didn't fight it. Instead, She did what she'd always done when the world was trying to kill her. She went to the kitchen and she cooked. She made everything. Jollof rice. Chin chin. Egusi soup. 2 sweet potato pies. She cooked like a woman possessed, like if she could fill the house with enough warmth and enough flavor and enough of her grandmother's legacy, she could ward off the darkness pressing against the windows. Destiny sat at the kitchen counter and helped, peeling sweet potatoes and telling stories about college that had nothing to do with anything and everything to do with reminding Naomi that she had a life before all of this, a life that was worth surviving for. You know he's not going to let anything happen to you, Destiny said, sliding a peeled sweet potato across the counter. I know. And you know that if, God forbid, something happened to him, I would fly you out of this country so fast the plane would break the sound barrier. I know that too. So why do you look like you're cooking your own funeral meal? Naomi stopped stirring. She looked at Destiny, her best friend, her sister in everything but blood, the woman who had opened her apartment door in Hongdae 8 months ago and asked no questions and offered no judgment and just said, the couch is yours for as long as you need it. Because I love him, Des. And I've never loved anyone without it costing me everything. Destiny set down the peeler. She walked around the counter and wrapped her arms around Naomi from behind, her chin on Naomi's shoulder. This one's different, Destiny said quietly. You know that, right? This one dove into the ocean for you before he even knew your name. This one took a bullet and his first word when he woke up was to ask if you were okay. This one measures your ring finger while you're sleeping because he's too intense to just ask. She squeezed. This isn't Marcus. This isn't Damien. This is the one. His name was Damien, Naomi said, half laughing, half crying. Whatever his name was. He's in prison and you're in a mansion wearing a black pearl ring and there are 17 guns in this house. You won, Naomi. You survived. Now let yourself live. Naomi turned around and hugged Destiny so hard they both almost fell over. If you mess up my pie, I'm not making another one, Naomi said into Destiny's shoulder. Girl, there are 2 pies. We're fine. At 11 p.m., Do-hyun emerged from the war room. He found Naomi in the garden, their garden, the one with his mother's roses, sitting on the bench in the moonlight, the black pearl ring catching the light as she turned it on her finger. He sat beside her. He smelled like coffee and tension and the faint metallic edge of fear, but underneath it all, he still smelled like him, warm, clean, solid. It's tomorrow, she said. Not a question. Yes. Are you going to tell me the plan? The plan is I go to Yongsan with June and Director Shin's team. We neutralize Victor Cole and his operatives. Director Shin handles the government channels. My men handle the rest. And me? You stay here. With Destiny. With the security team I trust, the ones who have been vetted 3 times since this morning. Do-hyun. This is not a negotiation, Naomi. Victor Cole is not Damien. Damien was a bully with a gun. Victor is a trained intelligence operative with a team of killers. This isn't a warehouse with a single light bulb. This is a military-grade operation and you are not trained for it. I wasn't trained for drowning either. Or for fire. Or for any of it. And you survived all of it. Which is exactly why I need you to survive this too, by staying here, where I know you're safe, so I can focus on what I need to do without my mind being split between the mission and the fear of losing you. She looked at him. He looked back. And she saw it, the thing he wouldn't say out loud. If she came, he would be distracted. If he was distracted, he could die. Not because of incompetence but because of love, and love made even the most dangerous men do stupid things. If you don't come back to me, she said slowly, I will find a way to bring you back from the dead just so I can kill you myself. That's extremely specific. I've had time to think about it. He pulled her against him and kissed her temple, and she felt his heart beating, fast, hard, the heart of a man who was about to walk into the most dangerous situation of his life and was spending his last quiet moments with the woman who'd taught him what silence felt like. I love you, he said into her hair. I know. Say it back. I love you, Kang Do-hyun. I love your stupid expensive suits and your stupid handsome face and your stupid habit of jumping in front of things that could kill you. That's the most romantic declaration I've ever received. Get used to it. They stayed in the garden until midnight. He told her about the plan, the real plan, not the abbreviated version. She listened. She asked questions that were sharp and strategic, and he answered them because he'd stopped underestimating her weeks ago. When they finally went inside, he carried her to bed even though she could walk, because carrying her had become a language between them, a way of saying, "You are precious to me," without words. They didn't sleep. They lay tangled together in the dark, his tattoos against her skin, her braids across his chest, the black pearl ring pressing against his ribcage where the bullet scar lived. He traced her shoulder, the right one, never the left, always avoiding the cigarette burn, and she traced his scar, and they had a conversation without words that said more than any language could hold. "Come back to me," she whispered as dawn broke. "Always." He left at 5 a.m. 3 black SUVs. June in the front vehicle. Director Shin's team in the second. Do-hyun in the third. Naomi stood in the doorway and watched them go and did not cry because crying was for after, and right now she needed to be strong enough to hold the world together until he came home. The operation in Yongsan took 4 hours. Naomi knew because June had set up a secure communication channel that gave her real-time updates, text only, no details, just enough to keep her breathing. 5:47 a.m., in position. 6:15 a.m., perimeter secured. Moving in. 6:33 a.m., contact. Engaging. 7:01 a.m., 4 down. 2 remaining. 7:44 a.m., Victor Cole located. Standoff in progress. 8:12 a.m., no message. 8:25 a.m., no message. 8:41 a.m., no message. Naomi stared at her phone so hard her vision blurred. Destiny sat beside her, holding her hand, saying nothing because there was nothing to say. The minutes stretched like hours. Each second of silence was a universe of possibility. He was dead, he was alive, he was hurt, he was fine, he was. 8:58 a.m., Victor Cole in custody. All operatives neutralized. 0 friendly casualties. Naomi's knees gave out. She slid to the kitchen floor with her phone pressed to her chest and sobbed, deep, wrenching, full-body sobs that shook the tiles beneath her. Destiny went down with her, holding her, rocking her, crying too. 9:03 a.m., coming home. 2 words. The most beautiful 2 words in the English language. When the SUVs pulled through the estate gates 2 hours later, Naomi was standing in the driveway. She'd showered. Changed. Put on the emerald dress he loved. She'd considered putting on something casual and then thought, no. If this man was coming home from war, he was coming home to something worth coming home to. The car door opened. Do-hyun stepped out. He had a cut above his left eyebrow and his knuckles were bruised and there was dust on his black tactical gear, but he was standing. He was whole. He was alive. He looked at her across 20 feet of driveway and his face did the thing she'd first seen on the yacht deck when she opened her eyes after drowning, the thing that was too raw for words, the thing that said, "You are the reason I breathe." She walked toward him. He walked toward her. The 20 feet became 10, then 5, then none, and she was in his arms and he was lifting her off the ground and her legs were around his waist and she was kissing him like she could pour all her fear and relief and love directly into his bloodstream through his mouth. "You came back," she said between kisses. "I promised. You have a cut on your face. You should see the other guy." Do-hyun. Victor Cole is alive. In custody. Director Shin's people are handling the transfer to Korean intelligence. From there, he'll be extradited to the US to face charges alongside his brother. So it's over? He set her down but didn't let go. His hand stayed on her waist, his forehead dropped to hers, and he breathed. "It's over, Naomi. Really over this time. Victor was the last of it. There's no one behind him. No more shadows. No more messages. It's done." She believed him. Not because she was naive, she would never be naive again, but because she could feel the truth of it in the way his body finally relaxed against hers. The tension that had lived in his shoulders for weeks, months, since the night he dove into the ocean for a stranger, released. His arms loosened from desperate to tender. His breathing slowed. His eyes closed. "You're shaking," she said. "I know. The big scary Mafia CEO is shaking." The big scary Mafia CEO just spent 4 hours in a gunfight and then came home to find the love of his life standing in his driveway in the green dress he bought her, looking like she was put on this earth to ruin him. "So yes. I'm shaking." "Good." That night, after the debriefs and the phone calls and the doctor who came to stitch the cut above Do-hyun's eye while he complained about the anesthetic, "It stings. You took a bullet 3 weeks ago." "The bullet didn't sting. It burned." "This stings." Different category of discomfort. They found themselves in the garden again. The roses were in full bloom. The moon was high. And for the first time since Naomi had woken up to that text message, the world was quiet. Chairman Kang called at 9 p.m. Do-hyun put him on speaker. "It's done?" the chairman asked. "It's done, father. Director Shin tells me you were impressive." Director Shin is generous. Director Shin has never been generous a day in her life. If she said you were impressive, you were impressive. A pause. "Is Naomi there?" "I'm here, Chairman Kang," Naomi said. "Good. Sunday dinner is still on. Bring 2 pies this time. Director Shin is joining us and she has strong opinions about dessert." "Yes, sir." "And Naomi?" "Yes. Welcome to the family. Officially." The line went dead. Naomi looked at Do-hyun. His eyes were bright. "Your father just..." "Yes. Officially." "Yes. Did he just adopt me via phone call?" Chairman Kang does everything via phone call. He proposed to my mother during a 3-minute call between meetings. She said yes in 11 seconds. Your family is insane. And yet you're wearing the ring. She looked at the black pearl on her finger. Then at him. Then at the roses. Then at the moon hanging over the ocean, the same ocean that had tried to take her, the same ocean he'd dove into, the same ocean that had somehow delivered her to this garden, this man, this life. Do-hyun. Yes? When you come back to this beach with a different ring and a different question, and I know you will because you've probably already bought the ring. I bought it 3 weeks ago. Of course you did. When you come back with that ring, the answer is yes. He stared at her. You can't pre-answer a proposal. I just did. That's not how it works. It is now. You don't even know when I'm going to ask. Doesn't matter. The answer is yes today, tomorrow, next week, next year. The answer was yes the moment you gave me your jacket on that yacht deck. It was yes when you carried me off the boat. It was yes when you ate 3 bowls of egusi soup without blinking. It was yes when you came home today in one piece wearing tactical gear with dust in your hair and a cut on your stupid beautiful face. The answer has been yes for a very long time, Kang Do-hyun. I'm just saving you the suspense. He was quiet for so long she thought she'd broken him. Then his hands came up to his face and he pressed his palms against his eyes and his shoulders started shaking, and she realized, with a shock that went all the way to her bones, that Kang Do-hyun, the man who controlled empires, the man who'd faced down crime lords and intelligence operatives and bullets, was crying. Not sobbing. Not falling apart. Just tears. Quiet, overwhelmed, uncontrollable tears from a man who had never expected to be loved like this and didn't know how to hold all of it inside his chest. Naomi reached up and pulled his hands away from his face. His eyes were red. His jaw was tight. He looked wrecked and beautiful and completely, totally hers. You're crying, she said softly. I'm not. You absolutely are. It's the anesthetic from the stitches. Delayed reaction. Do-hyun. Fine. I'm crying. Are you happy? Incredibly. She kissed his wet cheeks. His forehead. The cut above his eye, gently. Then his mouth, and he kissed her back with everything he had, every wall demolished, every mask discarded, every year of loneliness and violence and silence poured into one kiss that tasted like salt and roses and the beginning of everything. "Ask me now," she whispered. "What?" "The question. Ask me now. I don't need the beach or the sunset or the perfect moment. This is the perfect moment. Right here. In your mother's garden. With tears on your face and stitches above your eye and my pie cooling on the kitchen counter." He let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. He reached into his pocket, because of course the ring was in his pocket, because of course he'd been carrying it for 3 weeks like a talisman, and pulled out a small velvet box. "I was going to take you back to the beach," he said, his voice wrecked and raw. "I know. I had a whole speech. Say it anyway." He opened the box. Inside was a ring, different from the black pearl. This one was a diamond. Simple. Brilliant. Set in a band of white gold that matched the promise ring already on her finger. "Naomi Brooks. You fell into my ocean and I have never come up for air. You taught me that strength isn't control, it's courage. You made my father cry with a pie. You made my bodyguard eat 4 slices and call it acceptable. You stood in a warehouse and told the man who tried to kill you that he was never worth your fear. You looked at me, a man made of blood and money and walls, and you saw someone worth loving." He knelt in the garden, among the roses his mother had planted, under the moon, with tears still drying on his face. "Will you marry me?" "I already told you yes." "Say it again." "Yes. 1,000 times yes. Yes, until the ocean dries up and the roses stop blooming and the pie runs out. The pie will never run out. Then yes forever." He slid the ring onto her finger, next to the black pearl, and it fit perfectly because of course it did. He'd measured her finger while she slept 3 weeks ago and he was nothing if not thorough. He stood. She jumped into his arms. And in a garden full of his mother's roses, under a sky full of stars that had watched them survive fire and water and bullets and betrayal, Kang Do-hyun held the woman who'd changed everything and laughed, real, full, free, the laugh of a man who'd finally found his silence. Inside the house, June stood at the kitchen window watching them. Destiny stood beside him. They were both eating sweet potato pie. "He's crying," June observed. "Obviously. I've never seen him cry. Get used to it. She makes people feel things. It's her superpower." June took another bite of pie. "It's acceptable. Boy, if you call this pie acceptable one more time. It's exceptional." Destiny looked at him. He looked at her. He took another bite without breaking eye contact, and something that was definitely not a blush crept up his neck. "Don't even think about it," Destiny said. "I wasn't thinking anything. Your ears are red. It's the pie. It's warm. They stood at the window, eating pie, watching their people hold each other in the moonlight, and didn't say another word. 2 months later, on a Sunday afternoon at a Hanok restaurant in Bukshan, Naomi Brooks married Kang Do-hyun in front of 14 people. Chairman Kang walked her down the aisle because her father had passed when she was 12, and when she'd told the chairman this, quietly, over pie the week before, he'd set down his fork and said, "Then I will do it. If you'll have me." She'd had him. Destiny was maid of honor and cried through the entire ceremony despite promising she wouldn't. June was best man and did not cry, though his ears turned red when Destiny caught the bouquet and looked directly at him. Director Shin attended and brought a gift that turned out to be a classified intelligence file on every potential enemy the Kang family might face for the next decade. "Consider it a wedding present," she said. "Better than a toaster." Naomi wore white. Do-hyun wore black. They said vows that made every person in the room, including 2 bodyguards, a retired spy, and a 75-year-old chairman who hadn't cried since his wife's funeral, reach for tissues. And when it was over, when the rings were exchanged and the kiss was given and the pie was served, 3 pies this time, because Director Shin had indeed had strong opinions, Naomi stood on the restaurant balcony looking at the Seoul skyline and felt a hand on her waist. "Mrs. Kang," Do-hyun said. "That's going to take some getting used to. We have time." "Do we? In your world?" He turned her to face him. His eyes, those dark, fierce, impossibly tender eyes that had found hers across a yacht deck when she was dying and had never looked away since, held hers with the same intensity they always had. The same promise. The same fire. "In my world," he said, "you are the most protected woman on the planet. In my world, anyone who threatens you answers to me, and my father, and Director Shin, and June, and apparently Destiny, who I'm fairly certain could take down a man twice her size with nothing but attitude and earrings. She absolutely could. In my world, Naomi, we have all the time there is. And I plan to spend every second of it making sure you never again wonder if you're worth saving." She pressed her forehead to his. The city glowed. The music played inside. Destiny's laughter rang out, followed by June's voice saying something about the pie being adequate, and Destiny threatening to throw a shoe at him. "I love you," Naomi said. "I love you. I loved you when you were a stranger drowning in my ocean. I loved you when you threatened me with cayenne pepper. I loved you when you made my father cry. I will love you when everything else fades." She kissed him. He kissed her back. And somewhere below the balcony, the ocean, the very same ocean that had tried to take her all those months ago, rolled gentle and apologetic against the shore, as if it finally understood that this woman was never meant to be swallowed by the dark. She was meant to be found by a man who would move heaven and earth and empires to keep her in the light. Now, if you made it to the end of this story, if you felt every heartbeat, every tear, every kiss, every bullet, every bowl of egusi soup, then you are my people and I love you with my whole chest. Hit that subscribe button right now if you haven't. Turn on notifications because I promise you, the stories on this channel will always hit this hard. Drop a comment telling me your favorite moment from part 1 and part 2. Was it the ocean rescue, the cayenne pepper threat, the chairman crying over pie, June calling everything acceptable, or Do-hyun proposing in his mother's garden with tears on his face? I need to know. Like this video. Share it with someone who needs to believe that love can find you even in the darkest water. And remember, some people are worth diving into the ocean for. Some people are worth taking a bullet for. And some people are worth burning down everything you've ever built just to hold them one more time. See you in the next story. Stay blessed. Stay beautiful. And never let anyone tell you that you are not worth saving. Because you are. You always were.